Alright guys, I know I'm a little bit delayed in getting a few other YouTube videos out to you. However, I really want to get this one out quite soon because it is Beltane on Thursday, if you can believe it. Honestly, the festival's just come around so fast, it astounds me every single time. Beltane is the Celtic spring festival of love and fertility, celebrating the peak of abundance in the natural world. One of the traditions of Beltane is to weave a flower crown, so I thought I could take you guys along with me today when I'm going to go and collect some flowers and show you how to weave your own flower crown that you can do as part of Beltane celebrations. And just as another little thought, so we'll be going through a little bit about Beltane as well, and what you can do if these materials aren't really readily available to you. So yeah, hopefully this will be inclusive for everyone, and it's a really fun, nice activity to do. You can do it by yourself or with a group of people, and flower crowns are usually adorned by women to celebrate the feminine aspect of the natural world, and then men would wear leaf crowns, kind of representing the green man and that masculine side of fertility. So yeah, you can do both, and I just hope you guys enjoyed this little short video and hope you have fun making your crowns. I can hardly see a thing, but look at the hawthorn blossom, isn't it beautiful? Honestly, it is probably one of my favourite of the blossoms. I think hawthorn and apple, my favourite spring blossoms, and they smell just amazing. Hawthorn blossoms usually come out as like white flowers and then they get a little tinge of pink later on in the season. But hawthorn blossoms are traditionally used during the Celtic festival of Beltane because they bloom around May, and they're nicknamed May blossoms specifically for this reason. So because of this, hawthorn blossoms were used in many Beltane celebrations. Hawthorn wreaths were created to adorn the tops of maypoles, which represented a giant phallus, a male fertility symbol, and the wreaths themselves represented the entrance to a woman's vagina. Now people then create a ritualistic springtime dance around this maypole to celebrate the peak of fertility. Beltane brides would also actually wear hawthorn blossoms either in their hair or in their bouquets, and it actually made the hawthorn blossom one of the traditional flowers of marriage. So we're going to use some of these in the, whatever it's called. Why has my mind gone blank on that bit? In the flower crown. My god. Yeah, so we're going to pick a few of these blossoms. Hopefully they'll last for the journey back, and then we'll go and make the flower crown. Most of the other flowers you can find in or around the garden. It's just a hawthorn tree I had to walk to. But yeah, isn't it gorgeous? Okay, let's gather in some nice blossoms. Thank you for this gift. So the hawthorn tree is also nicknamed the fairy tree. They're meant to be entrances to, or guardians of the entrances to fairy dwellings. And in many parts of the British Isles, it is regarded as terrible bad luck to cut down a hawthorn tree, otherwise the fae folk will wreak havoc upon you. Hawthorn trees are also known for their protection, and they're planted in or around homes specifically to bring protection to a household, or to possibly gain the favour of the fairies. But it's always good to say thank you to the hawthorn when you're collecting its flowers. Also, being a nature creator, I'm always like, why am I always scratched to shit? Why am I always covered in like moss and leaves and everything? This is the reason. Walking through scratchy bracken in bloody skirts just for the sake of, you know, looking nice in the video. I mean, yes, okay, I will wear combats and everything, but it's also 22 degrees, so... But I'll always wake up and be like, oh, where did this bruise come from? Or I was in the gym this morning and just went, oh, I've got loads more moss tangled in my hair. Or, oh, look, my legs are absolutely scratched to buggery. So, yeah, the life of a nature content creator. I mean, to be honest, I don't mind though. It shows that, you know, I actually do things. Just like with nails, I like to grow my nails, but I can never have properly long or nice nails because as soon as I have to chop the logs, climb a tree, climb a rock, or just do anything outside, they just chip or break or something, but they are useful. I like to keep long nails mainly for untying and doing up knots, especially little fiddly knots, which is essentially my line of work. Yeah. The hawthorn blossom got a little bit squished, but otherwise it survived being put in the bag and transported back across the hill. I'm sure it'll be fine. Right, let's collect some other little bits. Okay, right, we have hawthorn blossom, one of the traditional flowers of marriage and one of the main flowers associated with Beltane. We also have some lady's smock, some red campion, These are all from the garden, these bits, by the way. And they are technically wildflowers, but I seeded them myself years ago. We also have some dandelions, which were also used during flower crowns because they represented the sun. And what else have we got? A little bit of apple blossom from the tree, not too much. We do get a lot of apples from these apple trees, and these are really special blossoms because they come from the trees that we planted for my old cats, which are buried underneath both of them. What else do we have? Oh yeah, some hazel. So again, just from the garden, just for a little bit of greenery, fleshing out the crown, that kind of thing. Also, the leaves are just really soft, vibrant green, and they're quite flexible as well. And for the actual crown itself, I have some willow left over from Christmas wreath making. However, it's been such a dry season so far that it is dry as a bloody bone. So we're going to see how well this goes. If you can't access willow, then you can also use hazel. Try and find a piece of coppiced hazel that has some really nice tall poles, because it's quite malleable and flexible. In fact, I actually might go and have a little peek in the hedgerow myself to see if I can find any if the willow doesn't turn out well. So, next stages. So when you're making a flower crown, it is essential to measure it to the size of your head before you start. Now let's see if this snaps. You kind of want to leave a little bit of a gap as well, because obviously the more you weave, the thicker it's going to get. And you don't want to make it like really tight at first and then weave even more sticks around it and then not be able to fit it onto your head at all. So make sure there's like a little bit of a gap. I think that'll just about do. And what you do is once you've got the circle, you simply twist one end round and get the other, snapped, and twist that end round. To be fair, if it's snapping a little bit, I'm sure that's fine. So that's the start. Okay, there's a bit of manoeuvrability, which is good. For my wreaths, whether it be crowns like this or winter wreaths, I don't use any string or anything like that. In fact, I simply weave them into a circle and then see these little gaps that are starting to form? Over time you'll get more, the more sticks you add and the more woven your wreath gets, or your crown. And then you can simply stick the flowers into these little holes like that and they hold in place quite well. We'll get into that in a bit. Okay, so I'm adding a few more. When you add more, for God's sake, put the, losing my words, poke. This is quite fertility symbolish, which is, yeah, quite funny seeing as this is a creation for the fertility festival of Beltane. You're going to poke this through the hole and then again, just like the first stick, wrap it round. Now hopefully you can find some nice green bendy willow or hazel that doesn't snap that much, but I should be able to cover up the sharp edges quite well with the leaves. And I'm just going to build up the crown as much as possible because I quite like a thick crown. I do like how they look, but I guess for the start, especially if we've got the hazel, which is sticks in itself to weave around, you don't need too much. I wish this was a bit more green. I should have soaked it beforehand, but if I'm honest with you, this video was a bit of a last minute idea. I just thought it might be nice to try and show a longer form video of how to make something like this, because they're really great to do as a family, with friends, if you've got kids, because you can include things like plant identification, going out into the landscape and trying to find specific plants, and you can also learn a bit about the herbalism as well. Dandelions, for example, are amazing for the skin. They're rich in antioxidants, and a salve of dandelions can help with sore muscles and dry skin. Apple blossom is also edible and can be dried and used in a number of recipes, including teas. Hawthorn blossom is a renowned healer for the heart, and it has for many centuries been used as a tea or a tincture to help regulate blood pressure, lower circulation, and just for overall heart health. Yeah, the more you know. Right, let's see what else we've got. I'm going to build this crown up and then I'm going to come back to the video when it's ready, because otherwise you're just going to watch me snapping sticks for the next 5 minutes. Okay guys, I gave in and I went to get some green hazel from the hazel tree because the willow was just feeling a bit out of season to me. This is a festival of, like, you know, abundance and life and greenery and growth, and the dry willow just felt very wintry or autumnal. And also I really like the look of hazel leaves. They'll make a nice little base. I will neaten this up in a bit. This is just the rough structure at the moment. But as I'm weaving, let's give you a little bit of history about Beltane. So Beltane is the Celtic festival of fertility, love and abundance. It was celebrated around the 1st of May. We don't exactly know when, but it's now celebrated on the 1st of May. It is interchangeable with the other festival known as May Day, also celebrated on the 1st of May, which is a festival that actually originated in Europe and was brought over by the Anglo-Saxons, where it blended with pre-existing Celtic traditions of Beltane. Beltaine, Bel, is the fire sun god, so it's a festival celebrating the strength of the sun, the fertility and the abundance of the natural world, and the balance needed between masculine and feminine in order for the natural world to bloom and grow and crops to ripen. It was the last of the spring festivals before we transitioned fully into the summer months. And it was known as the height of the green because, as you can see, everything just springs to life all around you. And it's so quick, it just goes by incredibly fast. Celtic Beltane celebrations were centred around fire and fertility. So celebrations would often be met with a large bonfire created out of silver birch, hawthorn, and I think occasionally rowan, woods that are strongly associated with Beltane and the festival. I'm just trying to... It is a fine balance between giving you guys history and trying to focus on creating something nice and not just keeping my hands busy. So when the Anglo-Saxons came over, they brought over their May Day celebrations, which were also centred around fertility and the abundance of the land, the crowning of the May Queen, which is where we get the tradition of creating a flower crown. Now, the crowning of the May Queen is a theme that is recognised all throughout Europe. They do it in Romania, they did it in Rome, and it celebrates the fertility goddesses. Not one specific goddess. The May Queen is more of a generalization for multiple deities that were worshipped throughout various cultures, but were, you know, goddesses of fertility, birth, love, abundance in some kind of way, or animals and flowers. In the Roman festival of Florilia, they celebrated Flora, their goddess of flowers, and crowns and creations of wildflowers would be created and adorned around the home to honour her. So the reason why we create things like flower crowns is to honour these deities of the natural world, to invoke them at specific times of year, and continuing a tradition that our ancestors have done for thousands of years, blending the old ways with the new. You also, in the neo-pagan folklore, so the more modern pagan folklore of Beltane or May Day, you have the inclusion of the Green Man. The Green Man is a term that was coined in the 1900s by Lady Raglan, again to give a generalised personification to various male deities that were personifications of the masculine half of the natural world. So these deities would often be shrouded in, you know, forms of leaves and greenery, or seen as gods of the wildwood. And some folklorists and historians have argued that the Green Man is a representation for Cernunnos, or Herne the hunter, the horned gods of the wildwood, and they embody that masculine energy of the natural world and um, protect the land, the wildwood, and the animals that come with the wild. And so many people around Beltane and May Day will dress up as the Green Man, and you'll actually have in some places, take Glastonbury for example, the marriage between the May Queen and the Green Man. And this represents the marriage between the earth, the sky, the land. It is that blending together of masculine and feminine, as I said earlier, needed for the abundance of the natural world. I'll tell you guys a funny story, right? And this is why a lot of the stuff I put out on Instagram and other socials, some may find it, or it may come across as hippie, wishy-washy, but it's not. It's rooted in ancient animistic practices and beliefs, right? Because I absolutely hate hippie, wishy-washy stuff. I was in a health food shop a while ago trying to get a natural makeup remover. I don't wear much makeup. I wear a little bit around my eyes, sometimes a little bit of blusher, especially in the winter when skin's a little bit dull. Anyway, beside the point. And I went in, I couldn't find it. So I went to the girl behind the desk and I asked her, "Do you have a natural makeup remover?" She looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "Oh, we don't believe in makeup here." And I was just like, "What?" And she then said something about, "Oh yeah, you know, we don't need to dress up for that masculine. It's all about like the feminine energy here because," and this is paraphrasing by the way, but it was very much along these lines. It's all about like the feminine, just the feminine energy here, and how that is, you know, really important. And I went, well, you need a balance, don't you? Otherwise, none of us would be here. The natural world wouldn't thrive, and most everything would die. She kind of looked at me and blinked, and I was like, you need a balance. Yes, you know, there's toxic masculinity. There's also toxic femininity. You need a balance of both in the world. Positive balance of both. Anyway, so Beltane celebrations centre around this balance of masculine and feminine energy needed. And that's why people will dress up as the Green Man, or create flower crowns and invoke the May Queen. There's also other traditions at Beltane. So Beltane bonfires, people would usually let their own personal hearth go out and then reignite it with the fire from the Beltane fire. And this is a practice that was seen in many of the other festivals as well. It was a way of bringing in the new season, and again, honouring that time of year. And May Day celebrations and customs that came over with the Anglo-Saxons included that of the maypole. Now, the maypole is actually a giant fertility symbol. It's a giant phallus. And what would adorn the top of a maypole? A wreath of hawthorn flowers. And that actually represented the entrance to a woman's vagina. And the maypole dance that many people take such great joy in taking part in every year, especially in communities around England, is an ancient ritualistic dance to welcome in the height of fertility in the natural world, and in some cases to invoke fertility. Old Beltane traditions would be for couples to make love in a silver birch wood, as silver birch is one of the main trees associated with Beltane because of its association with many love goddesses such as the goddess Brigid and Freya. And you also had hand fastings, which would take place on Beltane. Hand fastings are an old pagan form of marriage. It's where two people who are in love and want to bless their union would have their hands bound together with colourful ribbon, knotwork, and cloth. And it was a very earthly ceremony as a way to solidify their bond and love for each other. And many pagans today will choose to have hand fasting ceremonies over traditional weddings. It actually was just a legal form of marriage up until the 1920s. It might still be in Scotland, but I'm not too sure on that. And so if you do have a hand fasting today, you still have to go and like sign a marriage document or whatever it's called. But many people choose to have that as their actual ceremony. Is another way to embody the old ways. Now, Beltane brides would often were hawthorn flowers, as mentioned earlier, which made the hawthorn one of the traditional flowers of marriage. Right, let's have a look at the leaves. Okay, tucked away, it fits. What angle looks best? It's all about finding where's the front. I think that's the front. No, I had the front earlier. Okay, needs to tidy up the front. Okay, we are going to put some flowers on this now and maybe take a few of the leaves off because it feels very, very leafy at the moment. I want it a bit more floral. Taking this on and off my head constantly is just buggered up my hair. I really need to do something with this. It is just one tangled mess of, I don't even know what to call it anymore. It's just a mane, like it's an actual mane. It's up in a ponytail so much because I can't do anything else with it. Anyway, I trimmed and tidied the front a little bit, so I've gotten rid of some of the spare leaves. It was just feeling a little bit too bushy, and I feel that some of the flowers would get lost. Whereas you kind of, well, it's up to you, you can do whatever you want, but for me I quite like having the leaves as more like a little base, just to bring a little bit of greenery to the crown. And then once you put the flowers on, you can always weave some more around if it looks a little bit sparse. So we've got the woven bits here, and I'm simply just going to do things like take the dandelions, find some little gaps, like so, and pull through. And I'm going to start to decorate. Now, I don't know if there's anything else to tell you guys. Well, there probably is lots to tell you guys about Beltane, but I can't actually remember what I've already said, which is one of the bad things about stopping a video halfway through talking, explaining. Oh yeah, by the way, so these flowers that I'm using are just ones that I found in my garden, but where you are, you might already have some giant daisies coming out, which make beautiful additions. Mine are just about to come out in like a week or so, and they'd make great additions. They make lovely additions for midsummer solstice crowns though. Getting some little bits on there. So this is the front of my crown, so I'm going to try making it with that in mind, and maybe try and have some things off to the side as well, like that. Kind of want the hawthorn blossom to form nice like that, yeah. So I want that all the way around the crown. Okay, there we go, let's just poke that in place. So the reason our ancestors celebrated fertility so much, and love and all of that other stuff, is because they relied on the cycles of the seasons for survival. They relied on this abundant time of year, and we still do today. We're just not as aware of it as we used to be. You know, we can just easily walk into any shop at any time of the year, and you know, I ate a kiwi earlier, for example. Kiwis don't even grow in this bloody country. At least not, yeah, natively. So we would honour the natural world for the abundance that it gave us. And we'd celebrate the deities that were associated with this time of year, with nature, with the land, to give thanks to them in hopes that they will help produce a good harvest. Because if it was a bad harvest, it would mean that there'd be a lot more starvation for the autumn and the winter months. And as this is the peak of the growing season, it's a time where many crops would be in, where wheat especially would be starting to grow. And so they gave and praised the sun, they gave thanks to the sun god and praised him in hopes that he would make sure to continue to shine over the summer and continue to allow the wheat to grow. And there was such great reverence placed upon the natural world for various reasons, but a lot of it had to do with our care and understanding for nature, and how aligned we once were to the cycles of the seasons and the older ways of life. And yes, today we know why the sun, goes away in the winter and comes back in the summer, but to our ancestors, they had no idea. So, because of this, they put great reverence and personification on the natural world to honour it, because they knew without nature they wouldn't survive. And these old traditions are in some ways still alive today. There is a few customs that especially farmers and other countryside folk will do that are actually older customs, stemming from things like the Celtic festival of Beltane or the European festival of May Day. May Day, interestingly, is celebrated all over the world, even in North America, and I think that comes from bringing customs over when people colonised that area. But even there they'll have crownings of May Queens and May Day parades, which is quite something when you think about it. Right, I need to concentrate because I'm babbling and I don't even know if I'm saying anything correctly. So I'm gonna switch off for a little bit and I'm gonna make this crown and I'm gonna come back to you when it's made. Alright, redid the hair a little bit and it's so hot the flowers have already started to wilt, but that's kind of the idea of what I've gone for. Not the wilted flowers, I mean this is the look of the crown. There we go. So the back of my crowns always end up like the back of a Christmas tree. You know how you still try but not as hard? There we go. A flower crown for May Day for Beltane, using blossoms and flowers that are strongly already associated with the festival and that have long since been used for the festival. Let's see how long these stay on for. Shame this is before Beltane because this would make a beautiful crown to wear in celebration and ceremony, but maybe I'll make another one, or maybe it'll stay. When you're done with your crowns, try and gift them back to the earth in some way. So this could be giving them to the Beltane bonfire at the end of the day, it could be hanging them up in a tree, it could be gifting them to the wildwood somewhere. Yeah, entirely up to you. Also, another little interesting thing about folklore and Beltane is that it's a night of mischief from the fae folk. So farmers would actually place primroses in or around the entrances to barns on Beltane Eve so that fairies would not steal or ruin the milk or the butter. And wearing green on Beltane is thought to help protect you from any mischievous fae magic that may be about that eve. So if you do plan on staying up all night around a Beltane bonfire, make sure to wear some greenery. Right guys, happy Beltane. I hope you enjoyed that little folklore creation video and let me know if you want to see more of them.